Welcome to Wrapping Things Up, the podcast where we tie up the loose ends on all things packaging so you walk away with solutions. Coming up on today's episode. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrapping Things Up. My name's Meredith Denning, and we are back at it again with our National Sales Manager within our Flow Wrapping division, Mr. Robert Barkley.
Hi there.
How are you doing, Robert?
Wonderful. How are you?
So great. Are you excited to be back?
I am.
I mean, by popular demand, we had to have you back on the pod.
I'm humbled. It's great.
We got to give the people what they want. You know what I mean? Well, today, I'm really excited for our topic today. We're going to get into all things flow wrapping.
Great.
And this is your expertise.
I
need all of your knowledge in this episode. I need you to answer all the questions thoroughly.
Sure.
Specifically. Thank you. But before we get into that, I would love to ask just a fun question.
Okay.
What is one wrapped product you've seen recently that caught your attention, either because of how it runs on a flow wrapper or how clever the packaging was?
I've got two examples I can think of.
Okay.
One is a project we're looking to work on right now where it has a peel and seal on it, but instead of doing it on top, like, you know, the cookies and things like that you typically see, this one's going to be on the side. So it's going to peel open on the side so you can grab one or two pieces out and then seal it back in, but it's not a zipper. It's like that peel and seal technology.
Oh, that's really interesting.
So it's pretty unique. We've done it a couple of times, and there's some applications where it makes a lot of sense for.
Cool.
So that's one. And then there's another one I saw in a grocery store recently where it wasn't the traditional wrapping of like a protein bar.
Okay.
It was not the seal on the ends and one down the middle of the back. It was actually a four-side seal. So it had seals on all four sides. It was a different way that they're going at the market to make themselves stand out, I'm assuming.
Okay, I was going to ask, why do you think they chose that type of packaging?
Yeah, I've seen customers do that before. They're like, we don't want to be the same as everybody else. We want people to be like, why did they do that? But it gets interest.
Yeah.
So sometimes going against the norm works out. In this case, it did for me. I'm gonna try it.
That's brilliant.
They were different.
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, as we get into our topic for today, I would love to kind of start within flow wrappers, kind of the speed versus seal integrity.
Okay.
Specifically, when you are talking with packaging engineers on snack or bakery lines, what assumptions do you commonly hear about speed and seal integrity, and where do those assumptions go a little sideways?
Probably the first thing that comes to mind would be customers, baking. Not as much. It really depends on the product.
Okay.
Whether they want a fully hermetic seal or not. What that means is it's completely airtight.
Okay.
So you look at a lot of your chocolate bars, things like that. Those aren't always completely hermetic because oxygen won't completely mess up a chocolate bar. They don't gas flush them. They don't do things like that. However, if you get something that is maybe a muffin and they don't put preservatives in it or anything like that.
Okay.
A lot of bakery customers are going after those more natural type products. They might gas flush those or do a modified atmosphere of some type inside the package, and that requires a very specific seal. So when you do that, it's a different sealing technology, and it's not as fast. So they might be, hey, I've got 200 muffins coming off my line, I need you to package them, and I need you to gas flush it and seal it. It's not always going to be as simple as if you do what's our standard rotary type seal that you see a lot on flow wrapping, or a box motion type that can get that really tight seal that we can get that gas flush put into it.
That makes sense. What happens when teams start to chase speed without watching their sealing behavior, and what kind of problems start to creep in if sealing behavior is ignored?
So I've seen a lot of customers in whether it's bakery or plenty of other types of industries that they have competitions between their different shifts or different lines, things like that, where whoever gets the most out, they win that day, and maybe there's a small bonus, maybe there's other incentives for them. And I've seen this a lot where customers that use programming and software that track everything that's going out.
Wow.
So sometimes those operators will try to push the limits without checking settings and just thinking they can hit a button to turn it up. That's not always the case, and that can start to degrade seal quality, that can start to cause wrinkles, that can start to not create the exact look that they want to have represented to the customer.
Yeah, that makes sense. You've talked previously about time, pressure, and heat as 3 variables within sealing that are obviously very important.
Yeah.
How do those 3 things change as lines push for higher throughput?
Yeah, so that's kind of the magic triangle of making a seal on any kind of technology.
Right.
So that time, pressure, and heat. As you go faster, time just starts to disappear. And when that happens, you're really relying on both heat and on pressure. And sometimes you're going so fast you can't even get that heat in there, because if you go too high with the heat, you're just going to melt the film.
Sure.
So then you're relying on pressure. Or it's just a balance. There's technologies out there for cold seal film. That's done a lot when a bakery wants to send a ton of pieces per minute through a line, or if we're working with a chocolatier type customer and they don't want that heat rising and affecting their product because that's a very low melting point.
Yeah.
Cold seal film can come into play there, and then you're not dealing with heat. You're only dealing with pressure, or maybe not even time, and it's straight pressure, and it's just trying to get as much grip on that film as possible as you run it through.
Is there any do you need to consider film within that as well, in the sense of does film change depending on how high the heat is, or the product, or all those things that you're talking about?
Yeah,
how does that affect it, or how do you consider that?
So if you were to go to a grocery store and grab a grocery bag, if you go to certain stores, that grocery bag, you can peel it very, very easily. You don't want to double bag things. If you go to a Sendik's or maybe a nicer grocery store where it has a thick plastic bag that you don't have to worry about that, that is almost exactly how film works when you come to a wrapping machine.
Fair.
So you can get very thin types that customers want for certain reasons for their product or for cost savings, and that's going to require a lot of different modifications to run that on a system. Maybe we need extra powered rollers. Maybe we need a special sealing system, like instead of having a constant heat, we need instant heat that turns off right away so we don't melt it. Or the adverse side, they have something that's very heavy or needs to be very protected, and they need a very thick film. That's going to require another type of special sealing system where we have to make sure we get through that thickness of the film to make a seal, and we can pull it through, because it gets heavy as you're going through many pulleys and everything to pull it through the whole machine. It has to be able to get that through. So
that makes sense.
We do a lot of unique things to be able to handle those unique types of films. We can do paper, compostable, recyclable, a lot of stuff that not every flow wrapping technology out there can do.
That makes sense.
When you're looking for those and you're making those decisions, if you're like, hey, I want to be responsible in the environment and do what I can to not have wasteful film, make sure you're looking for the right equipment that can handle it. Because if you don't have the right options, it won't be successful. Right,
absolutely. From the machine side of things, what film behaviors cause hidden flow wrapper efficiencies?
That's a good question. Kind of what I was already speaking about.
Okay.
There's this sweet spot of minimum and maximum thickness of where you don't have to do a whole lot to a machine to change it outside the quote-unquote normal build.
Okay.
You start to get really, really heavy film, you got to start to add some things. You start to get really thin film, you got to add some things too. Or there's been plenty of times I can think of a customer, they were doing chocolate bars, and they had a film they had chosen, and all of a sudden they were looking for ways to save money within their plant. It makes sense, that's what a good business does. They decided to look at film for one of them, and they just decided to change it. And they started running, and they ran into a bunch of problems with efficiencies. So they quickly just were like, oh, this flow wrapper is a piece of junk, I can't handle it. When really all it required was a few changes within the system requirements, and temperature, pressure, speed, it was up and running again. Once they gave us a call, we were able to get it fixed and get going again. So there's times where those efficiencies get affected by just a small change in film. It could be a different layer type. It could be different substrates of a variety of different things that could affect it.
Interesting. How do you help packaging engineers tell whether they really have a film problem, kind of as you already talked about, or if it's a sealing or control issue? How do you kind of guide that conversation?
So it kind of depends on the application.
Okay.
The easiest thing for us to do is send us your film. Whether you're looking to purchase a piece of equipment or you already have one of ours, send us the film you're looking to use. Let us test it, let us run it, and we can tell you this is what you need to make it successful. Or it's not going to work, here are the changes you need to make. And that could be just changes on the film pass side, that could be changes on the actual sealing head, or adding different technologies to that sealing area. There's a variety of things, but the best thing to do is always test it and make sure it's going to do what you want it to do.
That makes sense. You've talked previously about the opportunity that Viking Basic has of being able to use paper-based flow wrap films, and how our equipment is suited for them. What are some of the machine side considerations that really matter?
So paper can be a lot of different things, as weird as that sounds.
Okay.
There's a lot of different,
can you describe that for me?
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways to build a paper film.
Yeah.
There could be a inside layer to that film that isn't paper and the outside's paper. So it looks that way. It is far more, better for the environment, but it has this extra layer. There's other customers that are like, nope, I want paper. That's all I want. How can we do that? And we work with those customers to add different components to the machines to be able to handle it. Kind of going back to when I mentioned the film path, a lot has to handle there. If you just grabbed a piece of paper and pulled it, or went this way with it, whatever, you're going to tear it. And that happens when you start putting tons of pounds of pressure on a piece of paper as you pull it through a film path.
Yeah.
So you need to add different areas to assist the film to be able to make it through. And another thing people don't always think about, you go to form that pouch, you're going to get creases. If you just took a piece of paper and you're going to get a crease, and you're going to be able to see that. Maybe you want it if it's right on the corner of the product. Maybe you don't, because it's going to get little waves that impact whatever graphics you have on it, whatever it might be.
Right.
So there's a lot of things to think about when dealing with paper, or even some of the more lighter films, of what impacts they're going to have, because what it looks like at the beginning on the roll can be completely different to what it looks like when it's in a finished package.
Do you feel like paper film can be more complicated than regular film?
Oh, yeah.
Or like, so there is just more like in the details.
There definitely is. From what I've noticed, working with various film partners, that's one part of that industry that's trying to get to where it needs to run at faster on automation. One of the biggest sacrifices is always speed.
Yeah.
If we can run it, it's going to be slower. So as the film manufacturers start to begin to improve that technology, it will catch up, as it has with many others.
For sure. But
it's going to take some time.
Yeah. But like you said, it could be a different differentiator on like the shelf at a market. Kind of like you said with that, what was the example you gave? The
four-side seal?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like it could be the difference between them and one of their competitors, which is
absolutely
really cool and something to consider. Getting more into the topic of machine controls within a flow wrapper. On a modern flow wrapper, what kind of information can controls and HMIs give packaging engineers about what's happening specifically with the seal?
Yeah, there's a lot we can do with that.
Okay.
The most common item we provide is a confirmation that we hit the temperature we said it would hit, we hit the pressure we said it would hit, and the time.
Yeah.
Again, going back to that triangle.
Right.
That is making sure we say, we were going to do this, we did do this, and here's the proof.
Yep.
So we add extra sensors or extra programming inside of it that can give that report out. And if for some reason we don't hit it, we can put an alarm and either stop the machine entirely or see if it's trending, after a few packages, then stop it. There's a lot of items we can do. Or we can simply just send a signal if they have, an office that has the reports for all their lines. I've seen that plenty of times in different customers' facilities where they've got their 5 lines and the screen saying what's going on. We can send a signal, be like, hey, this is going on, keep an eye on it.
That's awesome.
With the benefit of us writing our own programming, we can customize it to pretty much anything the customers want it to be. Maybe it requires an upgraded HMI or computer, if you will, to be able to handle that, but we have the capabilities to do it.
Yeah. You've mentioned previously that operators can and possibly will adjust their settings within their machine or on their machine. What are some common ways that well-intentioned tweaks make things worse?
Anybody listening to this is going to know exactly how that feels and what that does. There could be a lot of things that can change if an operator just goes in and thinks they know better, right? We always have the conversation saying, we're the experts on the equipment, but ultimately the customer is the experts on their product.
Right.
So it's always this partnership approach to be like, okay, here's what we did for testing before it left our facility. Here's the kind of factory settings.
Yep.
And I've always worked with customers to try to explain to them, like, we have kind of that reset to factory default like you do on your phone. If an operator goes in and hits a bunch of buttons, the whole thing starts failing, we can always go back to those original settings.
Right.
And have that baseline to keep it going. So there have been times where operators not only mess with the speed, or they see, maybe they go, like I mentioned, they change a film and they don't have us look at it. They just try to dial it in themselves.
Yeah.
There's been the worst case scenario I heard once was we had a customer, they decided to go into a part of the cabinet that an operator probably shouldn't be in, and completely destroyed one of the main drives on the piece of equipment. They were completely down.
Man.
So operators, maintenance teams, whoever it might be, just understanding where their capabilities start and end is a major thing, and that comes to training, and we help with that a lot too.
I was going to say, there's also, like you said, within that partnership of being able to train their people on the floor so that if anything needs tweaking, it can happen.
Yeah.
But ultimately, we would like to provide that information or that guidance, I guess.
Yeah, we had a detergent pod customer that we got to a point, we were there once a month, making sure, because they had so much turnover with their operators.
Yeah.
We went there every month, and we were there to train people on first and second shift. We set it up with them. We did that for, I think it was a year and a half, until they got to a point where they had not as much turnover. And then we were able to keep moving along and kind of back off that training. But we offer all of those services because it doesn't do us any good. Obviously, it doesn't do the customer any good. They have a piece of equipment that's not doing what it should because their team doesn't have the resources they need to do it efficiently.
Yeah, that's true. How are you seeing packaging and maintenance teams balance access to advanced HMI settings with the need to protect the process?
Yeah, so we've had many requests from customers, whether it's usually from the packaging engineer or the operations manager to be like, hey, I want my operators to be able to do what they have to do. But at the same time, I don't want them to be able to do what they shouldn't be doing.
Sure.
So we can set up, there's the standard password lockouts. Eventually somebody gets a hold of the password. They start doing things they shouldn't be doing. It happens a lot. We can take that a step further where we have RFIDs to get into our building here. Many customers have that same thing where you could just take the RFID, scan into the machine itself, and we can log every single thing that happens on that machine and make sure they only have access to certain items.
Yeah. Then
they just physically have to go rob somebody's keys to get into it. So,
which we don't recommend.
No, not recommended. 1 out of 5 stars. But that's something that gives a lot of advantage for when those, certain individuals and plants are like, hey, my job is suffering because my team can't, they're doing things they shouldn't be doing. So we're able to help those, operations managers, plant floor managers, whoever it might be able to be successful by handling those different options we provide.
Definitely. If a packaging engineering team could only invest in one thing around controls, where does operator or technician training move the needle the most?
If we're there for production supervision, that's the biggest thing. We did a study, and there's been studies just throughout the industry all the time, that when the equipment provider is there and things are humming, things are great, as soon as they leave, production drops. So being able to stay a little bit longer, because you won't see things come up until you're running the system.
Yeah, that's true.
So we've helped a lot of customers, specifically if they are first-time automation users or first time to this type of automation or greater automation, whatever it might be. Okay, we're going to stay a week longer. Make sure you're up and running and everything's good. Then we're going to come back in 2 or 3 months. Have your team make mistakes, have them learn, have them try to figure it out. If it gets bad, let us know.
Yeah.
But then we come back and we have another 3-5 days, whatever it is, with them to be like, okay, what did you see? What happened? How did you fix it? What worked? What didn't work? Here's what we would have done. So having the ability to have that open line of communication to handle those is the biggest thing.
Totally.
A lot of customers try to just take it on.
Yeah.
Oh, we can handle it. We don't need to call them. Just reach out.
Yeah.
That's what we're here for.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of shifting conversation to the engineering side for like sustainable and next gen films. When packaging engineers in coffee or bakery start to test recyclable or compostable films, what changes most on the flow wrapping side of things?
So we touched on it a bit earlier, but it really comes down to how the machine is configured.
Okay.
It's anytime we always request to have film to test.
Yeah.
Usually we at least get a spec sheet that says, hey, here's the film I'm going to use. And we can tell pretty well by that. But anytime the words recyclable, compostable, paper, those words are mentioned, it's like, let us see it. Because could be a lot of things on the machine that need to change to run it successfully.
Yeah.
So that is where we have to make sure we're doing our homework and doing it ahead of time. No one wants to buy a piece of equipment and then find out later, oh, you got to add X amount of money to make this work, and it's not running. Versus doing the homework up front, take a little bit extra time. It's going to cost way less money to do it at the beginning, and then be able to run successfully right off the bat.
You might have touched on this earlier, but I just want to go back. What are some of those things that, if you hear the word compostable film from a customer, what are those things, when you get the film and you're going to test it, what are those things that you're looking for to make sure that it's at its peak performance?
Yeah, so the stretchiness of that film.
Okay.
So that's a big part of it. How does it seal? What does it need? A very, very low temperature? Does it need very high temperature?
Got it.
How long can it be exposed to that temperature? So maybe it needs, let's just say 400 degrees to make a seal, but if it's exposed to it for more than 2-3 seconds, it melts.
Yeah.
So do we need a sealing system that is just an instant heat and then off to make the seal?
Okay.
Or what is the range that this has a tolerable sealing area? So if it seals at 400 and it goes to 398, does it not work? Does it go to 402? Does it not work? There's going to be fluctuation just because that's in open air and able to have temperature change. So there has to be some room for that to fluctuate. Otherwise, it's going to fail. So that's another thing we look at, and we test where's the breaking point for this does not seal anymore. So we know what to do. And then we work with the film providers to be like, hey, here's what we saw. Here's what it needs to be successful. And we take care of that side for the customer, because they don't always know everything, and we don't always know everything, and the film guys don't always know everything. But you all start communicating and working together, you get it figured out much quicker.
Definitely. How often can existing flow wrappers be adapted for more sustainable materials versus needing major retrofits or new equipment?
Depends on the film.
Okay.
But it could be, I need to change that transversal sealing head system. And that's what makes like that top and bottom seal. So if they have gone to something that needs, like I mentioned, the constant heat or just the instant heat, that's something that can be changed. If they need to go, they want to add gas flush. Maybe now they want to have modified atmosphere. They had a rotary system. Now we need to go to the box motion. There's different things we can do in that aspect to make those changes. Or on the film path, maybe we need to add a drive to one of the rollers to be able to help push the film versus it just gets pulled and then it snaps.
Right.
So there are different things we can do. There's other small tweaks. Those are usually the main ones we look at. But there are different things you can do to the wrapper to help it accommodate that. Eventually, there are just too great of differences that, you're going to need a new one that can handle this. But many times we can make it work.
Yeah. What do you feel is the smartest way for packaging engineers to pilot new film so they don't shut a whole line down for a week?
Send it to us.
Okay.
We also have entry-level machines too. So if you are a bakery and you're running 400 bars a minute through a line, you can't really afford for that to be down. They don't want to turn off their ovens. They don't want to turn off their production, which makes sense. It's very costly to do that.
Right.
So instead, we've had many customers purchase a pilot line. It's slower, it's hand-loaded, and it's really just to test that film out and see how it goes. Or maybe they're testing a new product. They don't want to take off their production of that main line. They just want to have a pilot line. And we offer entry-level for flow wrapping as well as many of our other technologies just for that purpose. We've worked a lot with major food providers that they are multi-billion-dollar type companies, and they don't want to buy a whole line. Not that they can't, but they don't want to. They want that pilot line.
Right.
We've done it for those types, and we've done it for the mom and pop shops too. They're like, hey, I don't know what to do here. Help us out.
Yeah.
And we do that all the time.
Yeah, definitely. In your opinion, what does a good collaboration between packaging engineers, film suppliers, and equipment OEMs look like when sustainability goals are on the table?
Communication, communication, communication. It takes transparency, vulnerability, and just making sure everybody's on the same page between all three parties. The customer doesn't know everything. We don't know everything. The film provider doesn't know everything. But if we work together and figure it out, we're going to get there. So we test it. It works okay. We make some changes. Sometimes the film provider doesn't always have the right film. Maybe it takes a different film provider.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just unrealistic expectations from the customer. That's happened plenty of times where, there's kind of this three thing where I want it cheap, I want it fast, and I want it to work well.
Yeah.
Can't have all three. That's a very known thing. So trying to make sure those expectations are correct, being upfront about it, being vulnerable to be like, hey, we can't make it work. And
Yeah,
I don't
just
want
be
to provide
honest.
you something that's not going to do what you want it to do.
Right, absolutely.
There's a lot of heartburn in this industry of customers that went forward with something because they were told it could happen. So making sure we're upfront as possible about that, to be like, hey, here's what it looks like, or here's the risks that come with what you want to do. We're willing to take that journey with you, but we're going to run into some roadblocks and work together to figure it out.
Yeah, which will ultimately get them to their end goal
Absolutely.
faster if you're just open and honest
Yeah.
about it, instead of like hitting multiple roadblocks because nothing was said or
Correct.
it was misinterpreted or miscommunicated.
Yeah.
Totally fair. Where do you see packaging engineers and operation teams quietly losing efficiency on flow wrap lines without realizing it?
That's a good question. Yeah.
And if you have a specific story in mind, please share.
So there was one I was kind of thinking about. The feeding part of the flow wrapping is incredibly crucial.
Okay.
And you can't just quickly switch back and forth from products, things like there are changes that typically need to happen. If you're changing sizes, if you're changing types of product, a variety of different things that can happen. So there are times where they'll just try to make a change or they add a product and try to make it work. We had a customer that they typically did normal bars and then they were going to do a cold packing opportunity. Great way to grow your business, make more time on the machine to get return on your investment. So then they decided to try to run a bread piece of product for a customer. And that bread was pretty soft. So what happened was the pushers that push the product were causing an indentation on the edge of that piece of bread.
Oh, yeah.
And
That makes
their
sense.
end users like, what is this?
Why?
Why is there a bump on my product?
Definitely, yeah.
And they couldn't figure out how to change it. When eventually they did contact us and say, hey, what can we do about this?
Right.
It kind of goes back to the being transparent, like just let us know.
Yeah.
We could have had this fixed for you immediately. Just took a different pusher type that we make all the time. There's hundreds or thousands of different types we can put on to be able to handle that correctly. And then also they had an issue with the actual length changing on that piece of bread. Because when you bake, it's not always the exact same size. So we have a technology that also allows with sensing and things like that we can cut to length.
Yeah.
So as the product comes by, we adjust when we make that final seal.
Right.
So they were having product get crushed in seals, have issues with that, and then they're down, and it's a big mess to clean up, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Versus if we just say, we can put this on, it'll take a couple days, and you're off and running.
Right.
We could have solved two problems for them very, very quickly.
Yeah, that's a good example. Kind of on the positive side, that's kind of not necessarily a negative, because obviously a positive came out of that situation because they learned something new. Think of a time when a packaging engineer or line team had that light bulb moment when the way they looked at film, sealing, or controls changed, and how did that then impact the next job?
Co-packing is where I kind of go to with that because their jobs change all the time.
What do you mean by that?
So they might have a contract with a customer and it's for 6 months or a year, and all of a sudden they have another one. Or they have this main line that they run for a customer every single day, but then they've got a few hours here and there each day to run something else.
Okay.
So there have been times where they're doing that and they're making the changes and they weren't quite being able to figure it out. And then with a little bit of help from us, they're like, holy cow, we can do so much more with this piece of equipment that we never knew we had the capability of doing.
Yeah.
So it helped them get even more contracts. Their ROI was far quicker.
Yeah.
And they didn't realize the capabilities that the machine could have, and whether that's with different widths, different heights, different speeds for different types of products.
Yeah.
Or we have a really cool function where between there's the longitudinal heads that are like at the bottom of the machine or the top, depending on the model. But specifically on the bottom one, where we put a vacuum between the first and the second one, they got this really tight wrap around that product.
Cool.
So it wasn't a true vacuum seal, but it was like darn close.
Yeah.
And it just gave the look that their customer was looking for that they had no idea they could even do.
Yeah.
So their light bulb was like, we can make a lot more money.
Like, whoa, wait.
Yeah. So that was one that kind of worked out, that with co-packing, you want the flexibility in a piece of equipment and the different capabilities that you can then sell to your customers to be like, hey, we got you. Throw more to us. Let us take care of you.
Yeah.
So we help a lot with that, and we lean heavily into the co-packing side when it comes to our equipment.
Amazing. Well, Robert, that's all I have for you today.
That was easy.
Easy. Thank you so much for joining me again. I forgot to give the plug, but Robert obviously was with us in episode 3 talking about the true ROI of automation. And if you guys haven't watched or listened to that episode, please go back and give it a listen. It was fantastic. We had so much fun.
Yes.
Don't forget to subscribe to Wrapping Things Up so you never miss an episode. You can check that out on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, but you can also find a link within our website, VikingBasic.com. Robert, how can our people find you?
Me?
Yes.
Oh, geez. VikingBasic.com.
Yep.
You can always reach out and ask for myself. I'm on LinkedIn. You can just email me at robert.barkley@VikingBasic.com. And any flow wrapping needs you have, please feel free to reach out. We've got a lot of cool technologies or just packaging in general. I'm always here to help with any questions. Been doing this for quite a bit, flow wrapping or otherwise. So just let me know how I can help.
Yeah. And you're going to be at Pack Expo East?
Yes.
Correct?
Yep. I'll be there. I'll be at Interpack. I'll be there too. And then eventually, of course, Pack Expo in Chicago. But we'll have a flow wrapper at all of those. So please come take a look, and happy to work with you guys on your applications and see if we're a good fit.
Yeah, very busy year for 2026.
Yeah.
Definitely. Thank you guys so much for listening to Wrapping Things Up. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks for tuning into this episode of Wrapping Things Up. Make sure you follow and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Stay up to date by checking out Viking Basic on social media. Thanks for watching.